Okay, we're going to look at some of the easiest stuff to do with surds today. We'll do some more complicated stuff with surds in the future, but for now we're going to look at some of the simplest surds questions you might get asked. Two things that you might get asked about are to simplify and to rationalise, and we'll have a look at what those look like. In terms of simplifying, there's a few key rules that we need to understand. One of the rules that we need to understand is that when you have something like this, it simplifies to become root 15. Okay, that's one of the rules that we use. And it's often written as this: the root a times the root of b is equal to the root of a times b. It's a really important thing. Okay, it's one of the facts that we need to know. One of the other things that we need to look at are things like when you have root 3 plus root 3. This becomes 2 lots of root 3. Like that. That's one of the important rules that we do. There's also a very important rule that we use that works like this, that says something like root 5 multiplied by root 5 is just 5. Okay, so these are some of the simple little rules that we can use. When you are asked to simplify, some of the things that you're going to get asked to do will rely on these particular rules that we've looked at, okay? So those rules over here, the rules of simplifying, we can use as we go through these. So some of the sort of questions you'll get asked might look something like this. You might be asked to simplify something like root 20. And when you're looking at that, the rule you're going to need to apply is this idea of using this rule here. Being able to rewrite 20 as a product of two of its factors. And when you're doing this, the key thing is to look for one of its factors that is a square number. So 20 is 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Okay, those are its factors. Of those, one of those numbers is a square number, 4. So when you have to simplify these, you often have to rewrite them where one of the factors is a square number, root 4, root 5. Because you can then turn the root 4, because it's a square number, into 2. You end up with 2 root 5. This is one of the sorts of simplifying that you need to do. You also end up with trying to simplify things that have different roots in them. So they may have 2 different roots within the same question that you're simplifying. And they will have in common a factor. There will be a common factor between these 2 numbers. So for example, this could be 28. And the one over here could be, let's think, 63. And you might have something like 17 of those, take away 3 of those. And you might be asked to simplify that. And when you're asked to simplify that, then you will need to be looking at these 2 numbers and thinking, how can I possibly simplify them to end up with the same number? So you need to be looking at them and thinking about their common factors that they share. And if you can see by looking at those straight away that they share factors of 7, then you'd be straight in there. If you can't see that they share factors of 7 straight away, what you might be looking at is thinking, well, how can I simplify this one into a pair of factors where one of the factors is square? And you might be thinking of 4 times 7. So there's 2 ways into this. You're either looking for common factors between the 63 and the 28, which is really simple math. You spot that as 7 very quickly. Or you look at it and you think, how could I rewrite the 28? I could rewrite the 28 as 4 times 7. Remember, a factor pair where one of them is a square. Same over here. You're looking for a factor pair where one of them is square. We know 63 is 9 times 7. We know 9 is a square number. So this can then become Notice very quickly that this leads to both of them being in terms of root 7. You know you're on the right track when this happens. So this becomes 17. Root 4 is 2. 17 times 2, so we get 34 root 7. Root 9 we know is 3. 3 lots of 3 is 9. Now we have 34 root 7, take away 9 root 7. So 34 lots of something, take away 9 lots of something, is 25 lots of something. 25 lots of root 7. So those are the sorts of simplifying that you will need to be able to do when you're accessing the simplest and easiest of surd questions. There's a huge amount of practice in your revision workbook on this very early on. It looks like it is on page 12. Page 12 has lots and lots and lots of surds we could practice tonight at home when we're doing this. Not in the classroom, there's no time for that, but at home tonight. Second thing, rationalising. This is also a very simple low-level skill when it comes to surds. Rationalising questions have a surd as the denominator of a fraction. For example, 1 over root 3. At this point, you need to understand that rationalise means that you will not take away, that sounds wrong, but you will remove a root from the denominator. In order to do that, the simple thing here is to multiply the top and bottom by root 3. Remember, if you do that, root 3 over root 3, that's the same as 1 whole, isn't it? You're multiplying 1 over root 3 by a fraction that's equivalent to 1 whole. So it's not changing. It's like taking 1/3 and multiplying the top by 2 and the bottom by 2 to get 2/6. It's like an equivalent fraction. It looks different, but it's the same size. So it's absolutely fine to do this. When you do, what you will find very quickly is that your numerator, 1 lot of root 3, becomes root 3. Your denominator, root 3 times root 3, becomes 3. You have therefore written it as an equivalent fraction where the denominator is no longer a surd. And that's what rationalising means. Give you a couple of slightly harder examples so that you've got these under your belt. You might have something like 5 over 2 root 7. You have to look at that and think, how on earth could I stop the root 7 being in the denominator? And a very simple thing here to do is, again, you multiply it by a fraction that's equivalent to 1 whole, so the numerator and denominator are the same. To stop there being a root 7 here, we need to be multiplying by a root 7. So the fraction that we multiply by is root 7 over root 7. If you do that, on the top we have 5 times root 7, so 5 root 7. On the bottom, the root 7 times root 7 gives you a 7. 2 lots of 7 gives you 14 as a denominator. So those are the simplest of rationalising questions. We will do another revision lesson looking at the more complicated surd questions. Just to give you a heads up of where this goes next, it might be the fact that you get something like this. And you're asked to rationalise that. That's the sort of question that's harder, and we'll do a separate revision lesson on those ones. But for the moment, that's enough to get you going on all the things on page 12 of the revision guide that allow you to do the basic entry-level surd stuff.